In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God, amen. Good morning.
Good morning.
Wishing you a blessed fast of the apostles. One of the things that through this fast, the church is always reminding us that we ought to be serving, we ought to be sharing our faith with people, with those who are around us. We talked about one of the ways that you share is you actually have a friend, that you become that Orthodox Christian, the loving person, the forgiving person, that they see Christ in you. One of the things that we're going to focus on today is when there's somebody that is an apostle that serves God. So one of the things we heard is we're going to talk about do not judge, so that you will not be judged, and we'll talk what is the meaning about that. But let's take a look about what is the scriptures that we read today. We see today in Matthew 12:12 a same miracle, a sign that was basically one sign that was seen and witnessed by two groups of people. And each one of them judged it totally different. And we wanted to talk a little bit about this judging situation and what is judging. So let's take a look at it. Matthew 12:22. It says, "Then one was brought to him who was demon-possessed, blind and mute, and he healed him. So that the blind and the mute man both spoke and saw." Something that is unheard of. This is something that they had unheard of. Somebody that was mute and blind and demon-possessed, and now he's healed. But look what happened. Now there's two groups, the multitudes and the Pharisees. Let's look at the multitudes. Verse 23 says, "And all the multitudes were amazed and said, 'Could this be the Son of God?'" So one group saw, could this be the Son of God? That was the question. And then another group saw the same. Another group saw the same miracle, and they went into a complete opposite of what the first one actually said. The complete opposite. Now, this is the Pharisees. It says in verse 24, it says, "Now when the Pharisees heard it, they said," look at the extreme now. The first one said, "Could this be the Son of God?" Now the Pharisees looked at the same miracle and said, "This fellow does not cast out demons except by Beelzebub, the ruler of demons." Extremes. Two people, two groups, the same mystery, the same miracle, and at the same time they came to extreme, conclusions. So, Son of David to ruler of demons. And how could that be? I want you to kind of think, because we judge, so it's natural for us to judge, and we want to talk about this word judging. And another part of the reading today, in 1 Corinthians 4:4, it says this, "For I know of nothing against myself, yet I am not justified by this, but he who judges me is the Lord." St. Paul is talking here, saying, the judge who's going to judge me is my God, the Lord. And look how look at why he's able to judge. Let's see what, like in verse 5, it's kind of makes it very clear. "Therefore," he's telling each one of us, "judge nothing before the time." We're very fast in judging. We're very fast in forming opinions and conclusions about people, about situation. It says, "Therefore, judge nothing before the time, until the Lord comes." And look what why God is able to judge. Look what it's two very main points. "Who will both bring to light the hidden things." God is able to bring to light the hidden things. We are not seeing everything, but God is able to bring light the hidden things of darkness. And not only bring to light the hidden things, but he also reveals the counsel of the heart of the person. And the thing is, God is able to judge is because he sees the hidden things, and he also sees the counsel of the heart. These are 2 points that I hope it sticks to in our mind. And in the sense, when I'm ever tempted to judge hypocritically, I need to remember myself that, God is the one that is able to see the hidden things, and he also see the counsel of the heart. So what is judging? What is judging? Judging is when someone forms an opinion or a conclusion. He sees something, and he comes to a conclusion. Also in Matthew 7, we're very familiar with this verse. Matthew 7:1-2, it says this, "Do not judge others, so that you yourself will not be judged. Not only that, but then he goes on, it says, for with the judgment you judge, how the standard that you hold your brother, the rod that you're going to measure him, and you're going to hold him to a higher standard. It says, for the judgment you judge, you will be judged. And with the measure that you use, it will be measured back to you. How I hold my brother and I judge him to a high standard. In other words, God is going to also judge me with the same measure that I used to measure my siblings or the people around me. God is going to use the same measure. So, one of the problems is that judging, we said it's coming to a conclusion or coming to making an opinion. Reality is that we all make opinions. The fact that you see something, you come to a conclusion in your mind and you have an opinion. That's something that we all do. It's natural, and you need to have an opinion of what's right and what's wrong. The problem here when God says, do not judge, the problem is when we judge hypocritically. In other words, we judge others with a different standard than ourselves. I could have that sin, and I'm wallowing in the sin, and I'm drowning in that sin, but I'm very fast in seeing that sin in my brother or those who are around me. So the problem is not the judging, is forming an opinion. It's important to form opinions, and especially, you ought to know what's right and what's wrong. That's forming an opinion. But it's when hypocritically, when I have the sin, I'm doing it, and I'm hypocritically, I hold my brother to a high standard, but when it comes to judging myself, I give myself reasons. I give myself why I didn't do this. But then when I look at my brother, I have high standards in judging him. So we judge others with a different standard on ourselves. That is the problem. So the important thing here is that don't judge hypocritically. So question for each one of us. Have you ever judged someone thinking that you are better? You are more superior than that other person. That's one of the ways that we hypocritically judge. Have you ever condemned someone else while at the same time you're praising yourself? You're always thinking, I'm higher than that other person. I go to church, or I do this, I tithe, and oh, this other person is always, that's hypocritically judging. So, questions sometimes, why do we hypocritically judge others? And the reality is that sometimes we judge others in a very critical manner, sometimes because we don't like them. That's the true reality, is that sometimes people, when they don't like someone, they will look for something. And one of the things that you'll see in the Pharisees that we saw, it didn't matter what Christ did. They basically, doesn't matter. He healed someone that no one ever heard before, demon-possessed, blind mood, and all of a sudden they said, no, they dismiss all that. So sometimes we hypocritically judge others because we don't like them. And sometimes we hypocritically judge others because to highlight their weakness and failures, hoping that we will feel better about ourselves, that will make me feel better. Well, everyone else is doing it, I'm just not doing it as often. And Matthew 7, also we're very familiar with this, is Matthew 7, 3-5. It says, why do you look at the speck in your brother's eye, but do not see the plank in your own eye? In other words, your brother has a small, tiny thing in his eye, and here you have this big plank that you can't even see right, and you want to go and you take the small speck out of your brother's eye. It doesn't make sense. It says, you hypocrite, first remove the plank of your own eye. In other words, hypocritically judging. You have a plank, and you're going and you're picking the small things of everyone around you. And the reality is, I got to tell you that we all have planks. We all have planks in our own eyes. And a lot of times we need to focus on ourselves far more than focusing on other people. Also in Matthew 7, it talks about when we judge, because it's important to judge, to know what judge, but you judge righteous, not judge hypocritically. So here in John 7:24, it kind of clarifies. It says, do not judge according to appearance. Judge righteous judgment. In other words, when you judge, form an opinion in a righteous way. But then the question is that who is righteous? So there's a big difference between judging and discerning. Discerning is when I see something, I come to a conclusion, I come to an opinion with wisdom in my mind. Yes, I separate the person from the act. The act is wrong, but why did that person do that? I'm not going to judge the motive. I'm not going to judge the intent. I'm going to judge the act is wrong. So it's discerning that the act is wrong. Also, the opposite of judging is mercy. And God said, in what we heard today is that the same measure that you're going to judge, it's going to be measured to you. And the opposite of judging is mercy. Instead of having mercy on people. If we call on God, Lord have mercy, and I keep judging everyone around me, how do I expect? It's the same measure. It's the same measure. So judging versus mercy. In other words, you want to be judicious, but don't be judgmental. Don't be judicious, but don't be judgmental. What is judicious? Judicious is when you operate with wisdom and discernment. In other words, I see myself, I evaluate myself, I am wise in the sense that where is my fallings and where is my shortcoming. I need to focus on myself more than the person that is around me. What is judgmental? Judgmental is when, some people say, oh, this group of people, they're very judgmental. A lot of times, judgmental is referred to as when people jump to an inappropriate conclusion. They don't know the secret things. They don't have the counsel of the heart. They don't know. And they jump to inappropriate conclusion. And we do that. One of the terms that you probably heard a lot about these days is unconscious bias. What is an unconscious bias? And this is sometimes why when we judge inappropriately, when we jump inappropriately to conclusions, and sometimes, I'm not saying all the times, but sometimes it comes because of some unconscious bias that we may have in us. What is an unconscious bias? Simple description of it is when one forms an opinion about an individual purely based on their belonging to certain group. In other words, they belong to this certain group. All of a sudden, I stereotype that group. Just that's how they are. We do that a lot of times. In other words, another example, like for instance, say if two people go into business together. Two families, they go into a business together. And one family maybe cheats the other one and bilks money from the other one. All of a sudden, anytime, that one family that was cheated, they look at this family, anybody from that family they will bilk you, they will cheat you. And it's a stereotype in the sense that if one did that, it doesn't mean the whole family did it. And we do that sometimes. It's an unconscious bias. Somebody that did something to me, all of a sudden I can group that whole family or the whole group or the whole race of, with this unconscious bias, I'll group them all together in that same, description in my mind. So unconscious bias is when one forms an opinion about an individual purely based on their belonging to a certain group. Or when the mind, and it's unconscious in the sense that it just happens. When the mind makes presumption just based on someone's race, religion, education, or profession, and all of a sudden I group that people, as soon as I see someone, that's the unconscious bias, and I judge accordingly. And that's wrong. That's wrong. So let's take a look at more verses. In John 1:43, it says this. I'm going to give you an example of unconscious bias by Nathaniel. Okay, let's look at Nathaniel, the one of the apostles. So it says this, John 1:43. The following day, Jesus, this is early on, John 1. The following day, Jesus wanted to go to Galilee. And he found Philip and said to him, follow me. So Jesus is getting his disciples and he says, Philip, follow me. Philip was from Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter. And then Philip found Nathanael, his friend, and said to him, listen, you won't believe it. We found him of whom Moses in the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph. So in other words, Philip is telling Nathanael, come, we found the Messiah that we've been waiting for. We found him. Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph. But look at some, by the unconscious bias. Nathanael said to him, can anything good come out of Nazareth? And it's something that happens, can anything good come out of Nazareth? And the reality is that, that was proven wrong, that this unconscious bias, Christ did come, Jesus Christ of Nazareth, and he came out of Nazareth, he was the son of Joseph. And sometimes we do that, and it's important for us to be careful when it comes to judging that we do that. Let's take a look, contrast two people, and I want you to think how you would conclude, how would you form an opinion according to this person. Let's take a look at it. Say you have one person, he follows the law, he follows the commandment, he prays every day, fasts twice a week, Wednesdays and Fridays, he offers his tithing, and he's careful not to fall into temptation. And he's very careful to not tempt it. This is one person. Let's look at the other person. Another person is the tax collector. Tax collectors are known to cheat people and to extort money from people, because that's how they make a living. That's how they make money. They profit from collecting extra money. In other words, this is what the government imposes, and to make his money, he would impose more on the people as taxes. So he profits from collecting extra. He's very rich, very greedy in the same time, some of them are, and very selfish. And the reality is that who would you see a righteous person? Who would you, without unconscious bias, who would you see the righteous person? Most of us here will say the righteous person is the one that follows the law, that prays every day, that fasts twice a week, offers the 10%, and carefully not to fall when tempted. This is how we would conclude, correct? Let's take a look at Luke 18. Two men went up to the temple to pray. One is a Pharisee and the other is a tax collector. The Pharisee stood and prayed thus with himself. And he, probably that Pharisee came in front of the temple and he's standing and he's praying, God, I thank you that I am not like other men, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even as this tax collector happens to be. There is a tax collector in the temple at that same time when this Pharisee is right in front of the temple and he's praying. He goes, thank you for not making me as one of these guys. And then he goes on, he says, Lord, thank you for not making me a tax collector. I fast twice a week. I give my tithes of all I possess. This is how the Pharisee is thinking. And I want you to think, because this is going to reach to a point, why do we hypocritically judge? Okay, think about it. Well, we're going to see the reason. And then it goes on in Luke 18:13, and then there's this tax collector. He's standing far off, and he would not as so much as raise his eyes to heaven, but he's standing and he's beating his breast, saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. Remember, God sees the hidden things and the counsel of the heart. Look what happened. This is how God saw the Pharisee and the tax collector. We would probably side with, this is a model person, he's fasting and he's giving. But look what, because God is able to judge because he sees the hearts. In verse 14 it says, I tell you, this man, that the tax collector, that he was repentant, and he says, God, be merciful to me, a sinner, he went down to his house justified rather than the other one, that Pharisee. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and who humbled himself will be exalted. One of the things that you find in that Pharisee is that he allowed his good deeds to judge his brother and fall into pride. In other words, when I stand on a high pedestal and I judge everyone, that's judgmental, that's hypocritically judgment, and it causes us to be like this Pharisee, where we're judging from a high and saying, thank you for not making me like this and like this. So in other words, one of the things that we take away when we form opinions, be careful that you don't use the external to judge the internal. Don't set motives on people, this man is evil or this woman is evil, and you put intent and you really don't know the secret and you don't know the counsel of the heart. So this is really important. One of the things is that, yes, form opinions, but form righteous opinions. And then also, before you form a righteous opinion on someone else, make sure that you check yourself. So what happened here is the Pharisees allowed his good action to get to his head, and sometimes we do that. We allow, I did this. It comes to our head, and I'm above all. And he became proud in that thought, and he came to believe that he was good. And one of the problems that we have today, that a lot of people think they're good. And then, somebody comes say, I'm good, I don't cheat, I don't steal. The reality is that we're sinners. It's important for us to understand that. In Matthew 19:17, it says this. So he said to him, this is Christ saying, so he said to him, why do you call me good? No one is good but one, that is God. Be careful when you start thinking that I am good, I am above all, I am a saint, I'm doing all this. Because the second that happens, we start judging everyone, and we fall into that sin of judging and proud. So in other words, one of the reasons that we judge hypocritically, it's because we have a proud attitude. We judge others from a proud attitude. So we need to be careful of that. So what does the Pharisee do? And that's the important thing that we need to be careful. Tries to find the wrong in others. Be careful of that. If you're always looking to find the wrong in the others, always looking for the speck, always looking for the speck and ignoring themselves. He sits higher than others, thinking that he's better. Be careful of that, because that's where the hypocritical judgment comes. I want to tie this to what we spoke about last Sunday. Last Sunday we talked about a right friend. A right friend and a wrong friend. So a right friend does not judge you. A right friend does not judge you. A right friend sees their own faults first. They always see, because that's one of the things that the hypocritical judgment is when I always look at someone and I just ignore myself, or I hold myself to a lower standard. They know a right friend will know his faults, and he helps you lovingly see your faults, not judging and oh, you are this. No, but he lovingly shows you your faults, and not just abandon you. In other words, he doesn't point out the fault and leave it, but he actually walks with you and repents together. In other words, he has his own fault, you have your own fault. As friends, you walk together, know each other's faults, you repent together, you encourage each other to meet with your confession fathers together. Of course, we don't meet together, but separately, but encouraging each other. And then humbly walk together on the path of salvation. That is a good friend. That's a right friend. Not just judging you, point out, and leave you there. No, but he walks with you and helps you, knowing he has faults too. That's a right friend. So I just wanted to add that to what we spoke about last week. And also journey life with you. That's a right friend. Very briefly, I would like to kind of go really fast. What some of the church fathers talked about judging. Let's look at them very fast. St. Moses the Strong says this: if we are on the watch to see our own faults, we shall not see those of our neighbors. If I'm focusing on our faults, I don't have time to focus on my neighbor's faults. This is what it means not to judge. Do not have a hostile feelings toward anyone, and do not let dislike dominate your heart. Do not hate him who hates his neighbor. So it comes from hate. Another one also, Abba Macarius. Look what Abba Macarius says about judging. Abba Macarius went one day to Abba Bachomius, and Bachomius asked him, when a brother do not submit to the rule, in other words, when a brother does not follow the commandments, does not live according to God's commandment, is it right to correct them? We're very fast in correcting people, by the way. So here, St. Macarius is asking Abba Bachomius, is it okay to correct people right away? Look what he says. Abba Macarius said to him, correct and judge justly, righteous judgment, who? Those who are subject to you, but judge no one else. We are very good in going around the whole world and judging everyone in the whole world, and they're not subject to us. So here St. Macarius is teaching us, yes, if you have children, you ought to justly judge them. You ought to form an opinion and help them. But don't go around and judging the whole world and, missing yourself. Another one, of Abiman. So a brother questioned of Abiman, saying, if I see my brother committing a sin, is it right to counsel it? Is it right to conceal it, to hide the sin? The old man said to him, at the very moment when we hide our brother's fault, God hides our own. Same standard, same measure of God. How we deal. So he says that the very moment that you hide your brother's fault, God will hide your own. And at the moment when we reveal our brother's fault, God reveals ours too. Same measure. We're very, very fast in putting people's stuff on, social media and exposing people and telling secrets. And this is not what God, tells us. This is a cool one here, which I really liked. This is the same thing also, say Abba Biman. Some old man came to see Abba Biman and said to him, when we see brothers who are dozing at the synaxes is our assembly, like the church, when the believers gather together. So he's saying, when I see a brother that is dozing, about to sleep, in the synaxes, in the church, in the assembly, what to do? So he says, shall we rouse them so that they will be watchful He said to him, in other words, somebody is dozing. It's your job to go, hey, wake up, you're in church. But look what St. Beeman says. For my part, this is his advice. For my part, when I see a brother who is dozing, I put his head on my knees and let him rest. Let him rest. In other words, I hope that that's not going to happen next week, everybody's. But be careful that how we're very fast judging everyone, passing judgment. It's important to focus on ourselves, and it's okay to form opinions, but for righteous opinions, reminding yourself you don't know the secret or the counsel of the heart. May God protect us from that sin of judging, and all the glory be to our God forever. Amen.